Hi there, I'm Dr. Victoria Mattingly, and this is Better Humans at Work. This week, I'm joined by Neysha Arcelay, founder of Precixa, a Pittsburgh-based boutique consulting firm that specializes in assisting organizational leaders with their transformational strategies. Neysha was just featured in Pittsburgh Magazine Women in Business, so be sure to check that out. It was a great write-up on her and the work that she does. Neysha's vast cross-industry experience has given her a front seat row to business strategies that work. Neysha's commitment to inclusion and empowerment makes her an active community leader, and whether it's through her book or volunteer work, she relentlessly works to elevate, empower, and transform organizations' most precious assets, their people. Neysha and I, in our conversation, we talk about what it means to be an inclusion champion, what it means to really restructure the way we work, that in seemingly small incremental ways that end up having huge transformational results on improving the human experience at work. And so without any further ado, here's my conversation with Neysha Arcelay. Hi, Neysha, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Looking forward for this conversation.
Yes, me too, me too. So you and I are fellow entrepreneurs, woman business owners here in Pittsburgh, and we were connected through another amazing woman business owner here in Pittsburgh. And I think we realized really early on in our first conversations together that we share similar philosophies about our approach to business. And would you mind just getting us started elaborating about our abundance mindset and how we're growing the pie together, rather approaching business as some zero sum game? Like, I would love to hear about, and then your story and your background too. Like, I'm just so excited to share with our audience.
Yeah, this is fantastic, Victoria. Look, I am new in my career. I tell everyone that I'm in my 20s, but I actually have 20 years of experience prior to jumping to entrepreneurship. And I think very early in my career, I fell into that trap of getting too hung up in um, growing my position, my responsibilities, getting a better title, and achieving no matter the cost. Well, the cost was myself.
Yeah.
The cause was that I was completely burned out. I felt completely empty. I did accomplish a lot. Believe me, I am very, very grateful for all the opportunities that I was able to obtain. Uh, but it was not enough for me, and that led to some serious burnout. Very, very quickly, I realized that in our mindsets, success is very short lived
Mm.
because we get to that level that we're striving for, and then it's like, now what? Now what, right? What's the next thing? So I decided to measure success based on joy and
Mhm.
the fulfillment that I was feeling. And that's number one. And there's nothing that brings me more joy than helping others thrive and helping others succeed, because success is more joyful when you share it with others. So that's in a nutshell the switch in my mentality. So as I am elevating and rising and bringing everything together, there's nothing that brings me more joy than bringing others with me.
Oh, and I have already reaped the rewards from that. You connected me with Mattingly Solutions' first senior organizational consultant, and she is such a joy. And I just love this more, like, I'm gonna just say, like, feminine approach to running business. Like, how can we not compete against each other, but elevate each other, amplify each other, support each other, cheer each other on? So I'm just so grateful to have you in my fellow entrepreneur network. I'm just so grateful for you.
Wonderful.
I would love to hear more about Precisa. So, this is Better Humans at Work, all about improving the human experience at work. And what about your work in Precisa helps improve life for humans at work? Please tell us about what you do.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, I was born in Puerto Rico and I'm the youngest by 10 years in my family. So that made me a problem solver since birth. practically. So that actually led me to obtain a degree in engineering, which is in essence problem solver in different fields. And that followed a successful, very successful career, 20-year career across three Fortune companies. And I'm very, very blessed. But like I said before, there was something missing within me. So 4 years ago, I decided to take my cross-functional, cross-industry experience and rechannel that to help organizations um, basically thrive and optimize the way they operate so that the teams within that organizations and the people, which is the most precious asset, so that they can thrive. And that's basically the essence of Precisa. It's very operational and organizationally focused, providing the structure and architecting the day-to-day activities in a way that it forces cross collaboration and in a way that the employees can show themselves in their best.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like that operational side or that like organizational design side of things just it doesn't get as much focus, but it's so important to everything we do within the context of work. And
It is, and it is very fascinating to me. Of course, I would love for people to come proactively and say, hey, I want you to preventively assess my organization and see how are we working to thrive. Sadly, we get called when there's an immediate merger and acquisition, an audit issue, or a huge amount of turnover. And although that's fine, we work and we elevate everyone together. You don't have to get to that point, right? You can actually orchestrate everything in your organization so that everybody can thrive together. But it is so important because if you think about it, the only way that you as an organizational leader can thrive is by ensuring that your team can thrive, that your team is showing up in their best self. And very, very important, that doesn't mean that you're going to be yippee and joyful every day, right? As an employee, that doesn't mean that you every day you're going to be all smiles. All of us have their days, right? But what that means is that even when I, as an employee, am not feeling at my best, I'm going to go to my workplace and I know I'm going to be supported by a team. I know that I'm going to be pursuing something that is much bigger than myself. So that's going to energize me to deliver the best that I can, even when I'm not feeling in the best way that I can.
oh, I love that. I love that. Do you have any examples or case studies that you'd be willing to share with our audience about a time where your work directly resulted in, reducing that turnover, increasing that employee experience, employee engagement that you'd be willing to share with us today?
I obviously cannot mention companies,
Yeah.
but I was working with an organization that implemented a new procurement department. And that procurement department was extremely tactical, right? Processing purchase orders, processing payments, processing the day to day delivery of the goods and services, right? And the leader organization, he was extremely focused on elevating that value that the team can provide, right?
Mhm.
But he felt that the team was not really engaged and really empowered. So what we started working was basically separating a little bit the workload of that team between part of it, the tactical one, but the other part of it, specifically through the senior leaders of that team and the senior members of that team, switching a little bit their work to be more proactive, to start researching suppliers, to start performing SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, the major players in the market, and then inserting themselves into the separate business units to provide that information. So those senior leaders will eventually prepare a report and present that report in the staff meetings of the different business units. And little by little, the business units started to turn the neck and say, oh, wait a second, I'm getting a little bit more than what I signed up for. This is cool. So eventually, it doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but with the shift in focus on the day-to-day activities and with the shift in mentality, eventually the procurement department started to be part of the decision making process because they provided utmost value. And yes, it increased the overall a little bit the workload of that procurement team, but it also shifted the mentality from reactive procurement to proactive procurement, which is where the true value proposition and the true savings come.
Oh, I love that example so much. There's so many great things going on in there. So first off, the point that you made of just this takes time. Transformation takes time.
Oh,
I
yes.
experience this all the time doing diversity, equity, inclusion work. People want to see results now. Like this, this is a cultural transformation. This is a strategic 5 year, 10 year, forever plan. Like we need to celebrate incremental progress. And that's the second point I wanted to call it in your story. Like these incremental small changes when done consistently and done
Yes,
well over time, you're going to see that long-term impact. And then the third
absolutely.
piece that I just wanted to point out, and I'm actually working through some of this right now with my company because we're continuing to grow. But have you ever heard of job characteristics theory?
No, I have not.
So it's from my field in industrial organizational psychology. It's one of our like fundamental theories in our field, but it's all about what are the aspects of work that lead to us feeling that we have meaning, that we have purpose, that we belong, and right. And so
Yes,
having control, having autonomy, being involved in that decision making process, seeing how your work relates to the broader work in the company and across units, like you do that at such a fundamental level for your clients, and that is so crucial for all these bigger outcomes that we just mentioned. I
I
love
cannot. I cannot agree, and this is something that I hammer, and people that listen to me is like, oh, here she goes again. But you cannot do any transformation, whatever that transformation is, if that initiative that you're trying to pursue to drive that transformation is not connected to the bigger purpose.
mm,
So, to companies that have their mission and core values posted in the hallways of the organization, I tell you, kudos to you, but that's not enough, right? You have to live that in a day to day. And specifically in transformative initiative, this has to completely align to the mission and core values because that will drive the purpose of your employees. That doesn't mean that every employee will be completely 100% aligned to your purpose, but at least they have to be parallel to it so that they feel that they are contributing to something bigger than themselves.
and that's also why the recruitment and the hiring process is so important to have good
Yes.
recruiters to be able to make sure that fit is there, and not
Yes.
culture fit. That's an issue in
Yes.
and that's a whole other conversation for another. But
Yes.
does the values of the organization align with the values of this individual?
Completely agree.
Yeah, yeah, oh, that's so important. So speaking of DEI and inclusion, you are a self-proclaimed inclusion champion. What do you mean by this, and how do you champion inclusion in your work?
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. This can be a whole separate conversation in itself. What I mean by that is the action after diversity. That's what I mean by that. So, that diversity is imperative. No organization can thrive without diversity, and diversity of thought, of bringing, of thought process, and yes, of race, of everything else, of gender, right? But Without diversity, you're not going to be able to thrive. But what happens when that employee is sitting in your organization? You did a fantastic job with your diversity initiatives, and you brought that employee here. What are you doing so that he or she stays? Right. And that's what I mean by inclusion, is making sure that every single person in your organization feels empowered to use their voice, is making sure that opinions are taken into account. That doesn't mean that you're going to act 100% on them, but at least you're listening, intently listening, and making sure that each and every member organization have their own specific and particular space where they can express themselves and deliver the best of their strength for the benefit of your team.
Yes, and we benefit from that, like as leaders, as organizational, owning companies and being responsible for those broader outcomes, leveraging our people's experience.
Absolutely.
Like we all benefit from that. They feel more motivated and inspired. We get better output and productivity as a result. It's just such a no-brainer. It's such.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I tell you, me as a leader, whenever I was in my previous roles, whenever I'm here today, am I gonna like everything I hear? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But at least what I have shifted a lot is to listen with curiosity and
Yeah.
giving the benefit of the doubt. You know, okay, this doesn't resonate with me, but there might be a hidden gem here. I'm really going to listen. I'm really going to ask, tell me more about that. What do you think about that? Those are questions that definitely are going to lead you to something that is aligned with the overall intentions you are trying to achieve, and it's going to bring you another broader perspective that you would have never think about it by yourself. So I couldn't agree with you more. Everyone benefits.
Yeah, that's how we grow. That's how we innovate. And I always like to say, diversity is how we see each other, inclusion is how we treat each other. And more specifically, inclusion are the behaviors that we can use to make others feel valued, respected, seen, and heard. It's
Absolutely.
not, oh, I'm gonna do everything you say. And I think when leaders are like, oh, be inclusive, I can't be inclusive. I have to do everything else. I can't just do everything that everyone wants. Well, no, that's not what inclusion is.
Agree.
You're not always gonna do the thing or take the idea, but to truly listen. And I think the important part that kind of gets lost in translation is it's that exercise of making
Yes,
someone feel heard and giving them that space. So whenever they do have that $1 million idea, they feel like they can come to you with it, right? So like it's not necessarily
absolutely.
each individual conversation, it's the environment that we're creating as leaders or helping our leaders create with their teams. I think is so that's the bread and butter.
I couldn't agree with you more. And actually, I want to make one last point.
Yeah.
Think about the opposite.
Mm,
Think about having a team that is so discouraged of bringing new ideas to you that they only operate in whatever you say and whatever you do, whatever you direct, right? And that's it. For some people, that will be the dream team. But we do not always wake up in our best selves. It is impossible. We're humans. So that means that even when you are destined to fall down the cliff, people are going to follow you and not say anything about it. And that's the dangerous part.
yeah, that's the risk. That's the risk of not being an inclusion champion.
Yes.
So
Yes,
Nisha,
yes, yes.
what three recommendations do you have for all those watching out there who want to be inclusion champions at work as well?
Honestly, three simple steps. Number one, listen with the intent of understanding and with curiosity. We sometimes ask questions and listen with the intent of replying back, and you are not listening then. You are just confabulating your way a way to respond to whatever it is that you're listening to. So listen with curiosity and ask questions. Number two, meet with someone that you have never met before.
Mm,
Coffee, lunch, dinner, supermarket run, you name it. Meet with someone that you have never met before, and preferably that is not in your immediate circle.
Yes, yes.
And number three, tied to number two, encourage those that follow you to do exactly the same.
I love that. That number two is so important. I mean, they
Yes,
all are, right? So listening, connecting with others that are outside of your circle, and then role modeling these behaviors for those
absolutely.
that follow you. Those are also wonderful. That number two, though, there's something really special and powerful about branching out to people who are outside of your network. So I've done a lot of research on unconscious bias and what actually reduces our biases. And surprise, surprise, it's not unconscious bias training. That's great for building awareness and understanding that this is a thing that we need to deal with, but it doesn't mitigate our biases that we have towards certain groups, towards certain concepts, ideas. And so the one thing in research that shows time and time again that actually reduces our biases is by establishing relationships and connections to those who belong to the group that we hold biases against. So if
I,
you
yeah.
like have a bias towards women, towards certain races, towards certain demographics, towards certain people with certain sexual orientation, the best way of getting over that is by befriending and by making connections and meaningful,
Yes.
authentic connections, not this
Yes.
tokenism stuff, but like that's the secret sauce. That's everything I try to promote when I talk about allyship and connecting across difference. Like that's it.
Yeah, and think about it. How many times in your career you have had a misunderstanding with a peer, and you put the brave pants and sit down with that person, and when you actually try to sit down with not with the intent of defending your point, but with the intent of really understanding what the heck happened, you then realize, I didn't saw it that way.
Yeah.
Yikes, I'm sorry. With that action, which is basically stemming from the relationship building, right? And relationship maintenance that you mentioned, with that, you just clear probably years of misunderstanding. So, absolutely.
Oh, I love it. Oh, what a wonderful conversation. And thank you for your pointers on being an inclusion champion. Neysha, how can people get in touch? If people want to reach out, what's the best way of them finding you?
Well, I am all over social media trying to promote inclusivity and growth mindset. So, either through my website, that's the easiest part, www.precisa.com, or any of the social media channels out there.
Thank you so much, Neysha. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy and passion. And most importantly, thank you for helping us all be better humans at work.